On August 22nd, 2025, just before 10 p.m. in Charlotte's South End neighborhood, something terrible happened. Irina Zarutska, a 23-year-old from Kyiv, Ukraine, had already lived through more hardship than most people her age. She had earned a degree from Synergy College back home, but like millions of Ukrainians, her life was overturned by the Russian invasion in 2022. Together with her mother, sister, and brother, she fled the war and started over in Charlotte, North Carolina. In this new city, she found work at a local restaurant while continuing her studies and giving her time to community activities. Friends said she was full of energy and hope, building a future far away from the violence she had escaped. But on that August night, all of that came to an end. After finishing her shift at a pizzeria, Irina boarded a Lynx Blue Line light rail train at the East-West Boulevard station. It was a routine trip home, one she had made many times before. She sat down, unaware that only a few minutes later this happened. About 4 minutes into the ride, the man sitting behind her suddenly stood up. Without warning, he pulled a pocket knife from his clothing and stabbed her several times, including at least once in the neck. The attacker was identified as 34-year-old DeCarlos Brown, a man already well known to local law enforcement, with at least 14 arrests on record dating back to 2011. After the attack, he simply walked off the train at the next stop as if nothing had happened. But police were quick to respond, and he was arrested on the platform only moments later. Family members and court documents later confirmed that Brown had been diagnosed with schizophrenia and was on medication. Still, that night, his illness and his violence claimed the life of an innocent young woman. Irina was pronounced dead at the scene. Police recovered the knife, and Brown himself was treated for a hand injury sustained during the stabbing. He was first charged with first-degree murder, with prosecutors later adding the possibility of the death penalty. On September 9th, the U.S. Department of Justice filed a federal charge against him for causing death on mass transit. At first, the case drew only local attention, but once the footage of the attack was released on social media, outrage spread far beyond Charlotte.
Do you think people should have helped her?
I really do think people should have helped her. I think a lot of them didn't know what to do in that situation. I think a lot of them was shocked.
If I would have been there, my first priority would have been her. She was obviously losing blood.
Do you think they were scared for their own lives?
I think they were scared for their own lives, and that's completely understandable. She was scared, holding herself, and then slumped over unconscious, and they just let her lie there.
A GoFundMe campaign for Irina's family quickly raised over $90,000 within days, eventually passing $224,000. At the same time, a separate fundraising campaign for Brown appeared online, though it was soon taken down after heavy criticism. For many in the community, the most disturbing part was that a man with so many prior arrests and a long history of violent behavior was still free to walk the streets. Irina's story, who had come to the United States to find safety and a better future, was left with losing her life to a stranger who should never have been in a position to harm her. On June 20th, 2023, in Otero County, Colorado, what began as a law enforcement response to a shots-fired call would quickly unfold into a series of events that no one on that highway could have anticipated.
Got me? Out of the vehicle! Out of the vehicle! Out of the vehicle! What's going on? I got you. Dude!
Get out on the ground.
The fuck? Hands behind your back! Hands behind your back! What's going on? Get on the ground. Okay, I got it.
The suspect was identified as 31-year-old Anthony Alfonso Sanchez III. Reports stated that he had been driving erratically, deliberately causing multiple crashes, and even attempting head-on collisions with oncoming traffic. In doing so, he created not only a rolling crisis for ordinary drivers on the road, but also a rapidly escalating danger for the officers tasked with stopping him. Very little is known about Sanchez's personal background, but according to some accounts, he had made statements claiming that his girlfriend had fired at him before. Whether this reflected psychological distress or a mindset of paranoia is unclear, but it added yet another layer of concern to an already volatile situation. To bring the crisis under control, the Colorado State Patrol performed a tactical vehicle intervention, striking the rear quarter of Sanchez's car and forcing it into a loss of control.
Speeds of 28. Hit maneuver. Hold trap.
TVI successful.
The maneuver worked. Officers quickly surrounded the disabled vehicle, pulled Sanchez out, secured him in handcuffs, and placed him into the back of a fully marked CSP patrol SUV. A search of his car even turned up a handgun, underscoring the risk that officers had just contained.
Check for the gun.
Gun. I didn't find a gun. It's right there.
My girlfriend. All right. Down. My girlfriend fucking shot at me, and I don't know what the is going on. Open your back seat. Hey, sit in the car. Take your shoes. First, take your shoes off. Take your shoes off. Okay, sit. Put your feet in.
For a brief moment, it seemed as if the situation had been resolved, but then something happened that turned everything upside down again.
7, 4, 2.
I copy serial number. Returning Pueblo, no reservation.
Crash on road 5. Road 5.
Oh. Fella, he just stole the patrol car.
Fuck!
Just stole the patrol car.
Standard CSP procedure requires that every prisoner be secured with their hands cuffed behind their back, placed in the rear seat, and separated from the driver's area by a locked partition. Yet in this case, the vehicle's sliding partition door had been left open. The SUV had recently been used for a prisoner drop-off, and in the urgency of responding to an active scene, it was never reset. Within about 90 seconds, Sanchez managed to contort his body and bring the handcuffs from behind his back to the front. He then forced himself through the open space into the driver's seat, and just like that, he was behind the wheel of a state patrol vehicle. What followed was another chase, this time with Sanchez driving a stolen police cruiser at speeds that reached 120 miles per hour along Highway 50. For 21 minutes, covering more than 37 miles, officers tried repeatedly to bring the pursuit to an end. Stop sticks were deployed across the roadway at multiple locations, but Sanchez, seemingly familiar with police tactics, was able to evade the first two attempts. Finally, on the third attempt, the stop stick succeeded. The patrol SUV's tires deflated rapidly, and Sanchez lost control. The vehicle veered off course and slammed into a parked semi-truck on the roadside, erupting in flames from the violent collision. Sanchez was pulled from the wreckage and rushed for trauma care, but despite medical efforts, he died shortly afterward from his injuries. The truck driver, although unhurt physically, was left shaken by what had happened only a few feet from where he had parked safely.
Good sticks. We got a ticket.
flame at the firewall. 1.5 miles. Right here.
As for the trooper whose vehicle had been taken, he was placed on administrative leave, which is standard practice whenever custody is lost or a use of force incident occurs. He was later returned to duty following preliminary review. In the end, a sequence of decisions, split-second actions, and one open partition led to a chase that ended in tragedy. Sanchez lost his life, and although the officers regained control of the situation, the events of that day left behind a reminder of how quickly order can collapse when even a small detail is overlooked. On the morning of February 7th, 2024, a Cameron Balloons Z-315 lifted off from a stadium in Poti, a port city on the Black Sea coast, with the plan of flying eastward across Georgia and eventually reaching Vashlavani National Park. On board were 3 people, all well known in their fields: 2 decorated pilots, Rivaz Utergari of Georgia and Krzysztof Zapart of Poland, along with Misho Bidzinashvili, a cameraman for Imidi TV12 who was there to document the journey. The Z-315 itself was a modern, high-capacity balloon entered in Georgia's State Register of Civil Aircraft, built in 2022 and maintained in line with both Georgian and international standards. By all accounts, the flight had every sign of being properly prepared and fully safe. But as the hours passed, conditions began to change. Witnesses on the ground later said they saw the balloon struggling with difficult winds, at times drifting low over fields near Asureti and appearing hard to control. Some even described it as coming dangerously close to the ground before rising again. Then, shortly before noon, as the balloon descended near Asureti, things took a sudden and tragic turn. It seemed the pilots were either attempting a controlled landing or bringing the balloon down low when a gust of wind lifted it again, pushing it directly into the path of high-voltage transmission lines. The moment the basket struck the lines, the contact sparked an ignition, fueled by the propane used for the burners. Within seconds, fire spread through the balloon, and the wreckage fell to the ground, burning in the fields below. The crew did not survive. Both Utergauri and Zapart had flown hundreds, if not thousands of hours, and were respected not only in Georgia and Poland, but also in the international ballooning community. There were even unconfirmed reports that the two were preparing to attempt a new world record for the longest balloon flight, though that plan ended in tragedy on this day. An investigation was immediately opened by local authorities and Georgia's Ministry of Internal Affairs, but so far no official statement has been released about the exact sequence of events, and that leaves one difficult question: how an expert crew operating a modern and airworthy balloon with all the necessary safety checks and certifications could still face a disaster so sudden that there was no chance of escape. In July 2018, a group of hikers were scaling an unnamed mountain in Pakistan, and what was meant to be a normal hike slowly turned into something far more dangerous. The exact location and identities of the group were never revealed, though some accounts suggest they were in the high Karakoram region, likely along one of the popular trekking routes that lead toward the K2 base camp. As they made their way up the mountain, the weather began to change. Heavy snow moved in quickly, and freezing winds swept across the slope, making every step harder to take. Despite this, hikers continued, unaware of just how dangerous the conditions had become. Then, as the snow pressed down on the mountain's face, this happened.
And Hafiz? He's going. Hafiz! And Hafiz? Where is Hafiz? Okay, okay.
In those moments, all they could do was watch as the avalanche tumbled closer, sending a thick white plume into the air. Within seconds, the group was engulfed in snow dust and ice fragments, their voices filled with shock and gasps as they were coated by the icy blast. The freezing temperatures and the weight of the snow made the situation almost unbearable. But by ducking behind a rocky outcrop, the hikers managed to shield themselves as the avalanche whipped past above them. Avalanches in the mountains along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border have taken many lives over the years, and they remain one of the most serious dangers for climbers and hikers in the region. From the way this group reacted, it seemed they had not fully understood just how sudden and unpredictable these events can be. Fortunately, when the snow settled and the mountain fell silent again, no one in the group had been seriously injured. They had been lucky, only a few steps in another direction, and the outcome might have been very different.